In a rundown Memphis neighborhood, hardly anyone would have guessed that a modest urban orchard, overgrown with weeds and half-forgotten, was about to host a fateful visit. But that's exactly what happened one brisk Saturday morning when a quiet stranger in a faded jacket turned out to be Terrence Howard, dropping by at just the right time. The morning sun cast long shadows across Peabody Community Orchard, a tiny patch of fruit trees wedged between old brick buildings. Once upon a time, local families had come together to plant apple, peach, and pear trees here, hoping for a space where neighbors could pick fresh fruit. But seasons passed, volunteers dwindled, and now the orchard was a neglected tangle of weeds, rotting windfalls, and broken fences. At the orchard's makeshift gate stood Ava, the exhausted organizer who'd been fighting to save this place from a looming development plan. A new complex was slated to bulldoze the orchard for a parking lot unless she could demonstrate its value to the city. Next to her was Mr. Grayson, a gruff city official who'd come by to check on the orchard's condition, though the frustrated look on his face suggested he was already convinced it was hopeless. A few scattered volunteers tried raking leaves, piling up fallen branches, but the orchard looked dire. A battered sign reading Community Harvest leaned at an awkward angle, half its letters peeled away. Ava forced a smile, addressing the small group. "If we can get this orchard looking decent, we might sway the development board. We just need a little more help. Please stay motivated." Terrence Howard, unrecognized in a simple brown jacket and cap, stepped through the gate. He'd heard whispers about a neglected orchard on the brink of demolition and decided to see if it was salvageable. Memphis was his old haunt. He had a soft spot for community projects, especially those bridging neighbors through shared labor. This orchard, he thought, could be something special. Mr. Grayson spotted Terrence's approach, rolling his eyes. "Great, another volunteer," he muttered under his breath, not bothering to hide his skepticism. "Look, we need serious manpower, not random stragglers. We're behind on everything." Ava, noticing how tired Grayson sounded, interjected, "We appreciate any help, sir. Every new pair of hands counts." Terrence just offered a polite smile. "I heard you need extra folks. I can rake, clear debris, whatever. Just tell me where to start." Ava handed him a worn-out pair of gardening gloves. "We're short on tools, but if you can scrounge up a rake from the shed, that'd help. We gotta gather these fallen fruits before they rot further." Terrence gave a nod, setting off to find the shed, which was basically a ramshackle lean-to stacked with battered spades and half-broken handles. While he rummaged around, Mr. Grayson shook his head. "They want to save this orchard, but look at this place. Hardly anyone is showing up. I have to file a recommendation next week. My job's on the line." Ava tried to stay positive. "If we just show enough progress, maybe some press coverage, maybe we can keep it." Grayson huffed. "Press coverage? This orchard's no big news. Unless you somehow rope in a celeb," he trailed off, giving Ava a pointed look as if to say, which obviously won't happen. Minutes later, Terrence emerged, a dented rake slung over his shoulder. He quietly got to work in a far corner, piling up rotten apples and picking out trash. The orchard was eerily quiet except for the occasional passing car and the steady thwack of rakes against the earth. He didn't make a fuss or talk much, but his focus was clear. Slowly, a couple more volunteers arrived, noticing someone new in their midst. Dan, an orchard regular, offered Terrence a quick greeting. "Hey man, you're working that corner? Let me help." They joined forces, clearing an impressive patch in no time. Ava watched with relief. This was the most headway the orchard had seen in weeks. Mr. Grayson, meanwhile, paced about, scribbling notes on a clipboard and occasionally snapping pictures to document the orchard's condition. He paused near Terrence, side-eyeing him suspiciously. "You some kind of landscaper or something?" Terrence laughed softly. "Nah, I'm just a local who hates seeing a good project go to waste." Grayson snorted. "Well, let's hope you keep showing up. We need a miracle around here." Terrence just kept raking, unbothered by the officials' negativity. As lunchtime approached, the volunteers gathered near the orchard gate for a brief break. Someone had brought sandwiches, another offered bottles of water. People started swapping stories about the orchard's history, how local families once enjoyed orchard picnics, how kids used to pick apples for fun. Terrence listened, fascinated. That's beautiful. This place has real heart. Hard to see it bulldozed for a parking lot. Ava nodded sadly. I even called the local news, but they barely responded. They said, an orchard? Not much of a story. Terrence gave her a sympathetic look. Sometimes all it takes is a spark. Maybe we can find a bigger angle like healthy food access or a mini farmer's market idea. If the city sees real potential, they might hold off the bulldozers. Mr. Grayson, overhearing, rolled his eyes. You dreamers, unless you get real public interest, the developer has the upper hand. Sorry, that's just the truth. The group fell quiet, morale dipping. Terrence placed his half-eaten sandwich down. Let's not give up so fast. What if we show them how a community orchard can unify neighbors, provide produce? We just need some event or push. At that moment, Dan recognized Terrence's voice, leaning in with wide eyes. Hold on, aren't you Terrence Howard? His voice caught, excitement creeping in. A hush settled. Mia, a young volunteer, whispered, from that Oscar-nominated film, An Empire? That Terrence Howard? Everyone swung their attention to Terrence. Ava's jaw dropped. No, you can't be Oh my goodness. Terrence gave a modest smile, removing his cap. Yeah, that's me. But, hey, I'm just here trying to save a corner of Memphis, same as you guys. Mr. Grayson's expression turned from jaded to stunned confusion. He stammered, why, you're telling me, you're volunteering in our orchard? Terrence nodded, unaffected. Been at it all morning, right? So maybe we can put this orchard on the map. A wave of hope pulsed through the volunteers. Ava nearly teared up. We never expected a star to help us. That's exactly the kind of attention we needed. Terrence gently waved his hand. Well, let's not make it about me. Let's make it about revitalizing a space that belongs to the people. All at once, ideas flowed. They could host a harvest celebration next weekend, invite local families, press, city officials, and demonstrate the orchard's new face. Volunteers could clear more land, set up a produce stand from the fruit that was still salvageable, plus a mini stage for local musicians. Terrence graciously agreed to appear, possibly even sing a tune or two if it helped. I'm not primarily known for singing, he joked, but I can hold a note. And hey, let's see if local news says no to an orchard event featuring Terrence Howard. Mr. Grayson, still reeling, said this could change everything. If the public sees the orchard's potential, the board might reconsider the developer's proposal. He glanced at Terrence with newfound respect. You might just pull off that miracle after all. Over the next few days, the orchard bustled with revived energy. People from around the neighborhood joined in, spurred by rumors that Terrence Howard was pitching in. They carted away loads of debris, pruned the neglected trees, replaced old signage with fresh paint reading Peabody Orchard. Community grows here. Social media buzzed with short videos of Terrence raking or cheerfully chatting with neighbors. The hashtag Save Peabody Orchard trended locally. The big day arrived, a mild Saturday with a crisp autumn breeze. Banners fluttered from the orchard fence, reading, Harvest Celebration. Tables were set up with homemade jams, pies, fresh fruit baskets gleaned from the orchard's newly tidied branches. A small stage, just a wooden platform, stood at the orchard's edge, where local kids performed a short music set. Terrence made good on his promise, stepping up with a gentle acoustic guitar track. People crowded around, wide smiles on every face. Then Terrence spoke to the assembled crowd, explaining how he'd stumbled into the orchard unrecognized and found a place worth saving. He highlighted Ava's dedication and the volunteers' unwavering spirit. Let's show the city that an orchard can be more than just a cluster of trees, he said, voice warm and steady. It can be a community anchor where neighbors share produce, families celebrate, and kids learn about nature. A place of hope. The local TV station that once brushed Ava off now arrived with cameras rolling, capturing the orchard in all its renewed glory. They interviewed Mr. Grayson, who admitted he'd initially been skeptical. I was ready to sign off on bulldozing it, but seeing this turnout, these kids picking apples, the local band playing under the trees, it's a whole new perspective. I'm drafting a report to the city board recommending they protect the orchard. Cheers and applause erupted. Ava nearly burst into tears, hugging Terence. We owe you so much, she whispered. He just shook his head. Nah, you did the real work. I was just an extra set of hands. That humility endeared him even more. By evening, the orchard twinkled with hanging string lights, an improvised mini-festival vibe. Neighbors who'd never set foot in the orchard strolled around, sampling fruit, talking about future expansions like a small greenhouse or weekly farmers market. The volunteer group soared to nearly triple in number, eager to keep building on the orchard's success. As dusk settled, Terence slipped off quietly, not wanting a grand farewell. He left behind a wave of hope and a vow to return whenever he could. The next morning, social media overflowed with photos. Terrence Howard kneeling by a sapling, chatting with kids, performing a short acoustic piece. The orchard story spread well beyond Memphis, inspiring other communities to fight for their green spaces. In the weeks that followed, the city board formally postponed the developer's plans, launching a review that favored preserving Peabody Orchard. They cited overwhelming public interest and promising revitalization. Word reached Terence that the orchard was safe for now, and might even get modest city funding to maintain it as a public garden. Ava texted him a huge thank you, attaching a photo of freshly planted seedlings in a newly cleared patch. You gave us the spark, she wrote. Terence replied simply, you all kept it alive. Thrilled I could help. And so, a once-forgotten orchard on Memphis's south side transformed from a tangled mess into a beacon of communal pride, reminding everyone that sometimes the quiet arrival of a single helping hand can sprout unstoppable growth, no matter how tough the soil.